And welcome to this Public Dissemination Workshop in Budapest. Due to a number of strikes at the Brussels airport, I cannot join you in these days, but thanks to the digital revolution, I can still share my ideas and findings with you. I have received and read all of your SWOT analysis, and I have tried to make a summary of them, or at least of the strengths and weaknesses of them, because the material I received from you was so vast that it was impossible to put it all in this short presentation. Anyhow, I would like you to consider this PowerPoint as kind of an introduction to your later presentations of the actual action plans. So you will find that not all of your information is included in this presentation. Nevertheless, I think that at the end the conclusions might be some inspiration for you for the panel conversation that will follow later. I started with our Spanish partner, and I found that the strengths of this partner lie in the following items. They say that a digital channel is clearly opening up. Also, crafts now have found their way to tourism, household and culture. Spanish products are known all over the world and they are valued. There is a good evolution in design and trends, especially with younger crafts entrepreneurs, and the whole sector has a certain adaptability to change. It means that it is fairly easy for this sector to change according to new trends in society. Remaining weaknesses over the 2 years of SWOT analysis are that there is still a lack of business skills in order to develop a business model, business strategy and management in crafts companies. There is still insufficient capacity of placing Spanish products in an international context, although the products are well known. Crafts businesses in Spain have a relatively small size, with all the certain consequences. And then in the end, there are a number of governmental and political decisions and situations which have an impact on the sector, but on which the sector has no impact itself, like for instance the decentralization of the region. It's just a situation that the Spanish entrepreneurs have to deal with. Our Finnish partner has built upon the already existing strengths like the skills and know-how, quality, ecology and commitment. They have added, however, 2 new items to this list. They say there are more existing providers of digital services in the region, and digitalization and social media are used as marketing tools are used for more visibility of the crafts entrepreneurs, which will lead then to a better distribution of their products. However, in Finland there is still a lack of interest in handicraft, a fairly low appreciation of cultural heritage, little networking, a short-term business approach and a lack of branding. In Bulgaria we find that the strengths are, in the first place, the high quality products. They also find that the younger generation is highly digitally skilled and willing to innovate. Marketing and advertising are relatively okay in Bulgaria, and at the local level they see that network is expanding. However, the remaining weaknesses are that for older entrepreneurs it seems to be difficult to enter new markets. There's also a lack of willingness to enter new markets, and insufficient efforts are being done to enter these markets. There is a relatively low degree of innovation, and there is a general uncertainty due to the consequences of the pandemic. And this is a fairly specific item since it's the only partner that writes it so clearly in the weaknesses. In Ireland, the strengths are numbered as follows. There is a new Designs and Crafts Council Ireland strategy published, a number of new recruitments have taken place, and there has been a development of the Crafts Innovation Toolkit and Crafts Specific Innovation Program. So they mention both a general state of the art, that is that crafts are definitely, let's say, more popular or more in the picture, thanks to which we have these new recruitments, for instance, and they also refer to what I have learned from the crafts project. Remaining weaknesses are, however, the limited budget, the not being financially independent of the crafts entrepreneurs, there is a limited decision-making autonomy, and a low capacity for policy advocacy in Ireland. In Hungary, strengths are mentioned. First of all, there is a number of governmental and external initiatives, like for instance the government decree and law on Hungaricums, also the fact that folk crafts are exempt from tax. These are, let's say, governmental decisions from which the sector benefits, but on which the sector has no impact at all. Another strength is that crafts works are always better appreciated in time, so they have moved forward. The number of local markets and festivals has grown, rural tourism has increased, and there is more sustainability awareness. Weaknesses are that they still lack a definition of folk crafts. There is a lack of financing for family businesses, for startups. No investors choose for this craft sector. Masters in folk art cannot teach in national schools. These are, let's say, decisions from governments or governmental instances, and yeah, they have an impact on the sector, although the sector itself cannot change anything about it. There is still an insufficient support for innovation in Hungary, and youngsters often don't want to take over the family business. And then, as a last item, they also mentioned the black and grey markets, which are obviously a threat for crafts businesses. In Italy, the strengths are that the management structure is fairly flexible. They are apt to work with new tourism after the pandemic. Uniqueness of products and the recognition of the Florentine and Tuscan craftsmanship. The creation of B2B platforms and a better use of digital and social media for promotion of their articles. The remaining weaknesses are that the digitalization has increased, but the digital strategy remains often a matter of attention. There is hardly any generational turnover, and or they keep repeating styles without innovating or adapting, so they stay with things as they are. There is not so much, let's say, an intrinsic motivation for innovation. There is hardly any plan for strategic diversification of channels. Micro and small enterprises are still afraid to invest in digital strategies. There is a lack of knowledge of foreign languages, even a lack of English, let's say, and the quality-price balance is not always competitive with other markets. My conclusions for the SWOT analysis that you sent in are that the craft sector has definitely evolved in these 2 years in a positive sense. The negative consequences of the pandemic have been mentioned explicitly only by one partner. There is a clear difference in approach in younger and older crafts entrepreneurs. The governmental decisions can decide in both directions. We have seen that for some partners, these decisions lead to strengths, and for others they lead to weaknesses. It is often hard to motivate the next family generations so that they would keep on the crafts business. In general, we can say that there is an improvement of digitalization It was a necessity, of course, after the pandemic, but anyhow, there is an improvement of the digital skills of the partners in general. And then we also saw that entering new markets is not as simple as it seems. So with this in the back of our minds, let's now listen to the presentation of the action plans to hear more in detail about all of this. Thank you very much. Have a great meeting, and I will hear you and follow you in the course of these 2 days.
Thank you. And we go now deep into the action plan. The action plan that the Municipality of Florence and the School of Business Science and Technology Industry has presented. I would explain it to you now, but first of all I would explain the methodology. The action plan is really to put in practice what we have learned. We have been experienced, we have been inspired by other partners, and then we have selected those good practices that mainly could be transferred to our territory. And in the action plan, we have tested these good practices and we have adapted them into our territories and into our context. First of all, the action plan from Florence is made by two main actions. The first of them is the call for craft, is the pilot. So Mrs. Castellana has already really deeply explained the aim and the goal of the good practice and the pilot action. We have already tested with great results. But I would like to tell you why and how we transfer this good practice into our territory, and so how this practice came to Florence. The inspiring good practice that we have taken as example comes from Ireland and is the Optimize program. We have learned and we have listened about Optimize in one of the very first meetings of the Craft Code project in the first year of our learning process. And the inspiration comes immediately because we found into the Optimize program the basis for what we were looking for, and we took the inspiration to adapt it into our territory, into our Florentine context. We analyzed the Optimize, we made a SWOT analysis, and thanks to Irish colleagues, we have tried to go deep into this good practice, into this experience, and we found out what we could improve or adapt or change, and in order to develop something more familiar for our territory. This good practice brings Irish design and craft to a global online audience, empowering innovative Irish brands to improve their online presence, and this was what we were looking for in Florence as well. So we try to improve and adapt the benefits from an extensive digital audit, and also to improve the digital marketing skills and propose them to our craft people. It was not so simple, so easy at the beginning, but thanks to the Murat Idea Park and the School of Business Science and Industrial Technology, we succeed in developing the call for craft. The first experience tested, and you have seen the results, so we are very proud of them. And we are looking for develop it again and maybe improve it in order to apply a sort of stable methodology to be offered to our craft sector. Because the digital skills, as we have seen and heard also from the SWOT analysis provided by our advisory partner, is something very, very important for the sector. Moreover, in the COVID period, the digital skills have been demonstrated that have been something that could save the craft sector in a very difficult period. And that's why, connected with the COVID period, we also develop an Action 2. The Action 2 is actually named Walking in Craft. What is it? It's some selected guided tour around workshops and laboratories of craft people in Florence, available on the official app and website of the Municipality of Florence dealing with tourism information. Feel Florence is the name of the website and the app as well. But where we found out this inspiration? The inspired good practice came from Spain. Talleres Abiertos, sorry for my Spain pronunciation, is an app made to locate the open atelier around the country. And the good practice, the experience, has been developed by Officio e Arte and supported by our partner Fundes Arte. This second action aims to create crafts tour in the city of Florence. Why? Because we decided and we found really important to link, to mix, and to contaminate craft sector with tourism, especially in a city, a well-known city as Florence. Because in the COVID period, when tourists have disappeared, also the craft sector disappeared. Because tourism is a main target for the craft sector too. This is an added value, but is also very dangerous, because we know the importance to link the craft sector with the population, to improve the culture of craft. But we have also to face the real things and the reality. And the reality is that Florence is a craft and tourist city, and we cannot forget it. So we find out this opportunity to contaminate the craft sector with tourism. That's why we have generated a sort of geolocalized map in which all craft ateliers could be mapped and put online. But it's not enough. It's not enough to map them. What we have to improve is the storytelling. So we are developing some craft itineraries, always matched with a really inspiring storytelling, an unusual visit of Florence. You can visit Uffizi, you can visit Dome, you can visit the historic city center of Florence, but there is something more. There is also something unusual. You can feel the tradition, the craft, and the history of crafting people in Florence. The craft sector needs new contamination. That is why we consider fundamental to link it with tourism, especially in the city center, but not only in the city center. We developed the app in order to give to tourists, but also to citizens, the opportunity to discover how many craft itineraries could be found in Florence, not only in the city center, because remember that the very well-known city center of Florence is made of 5 square kilometers, but Florence is a city made of 100 square kilometers. And we consider important to promote all the city and all the territories around Florence in order also to enlighten the pressure, the tourist pressure in the city center, and to share also the tourist flows around the city. Thanks to Taller Abiertos, we found out the idea to insert all these itineraries, all geolocalized itineraries, in the app. So you can find out what you are looking for, if you are looking for something special, or you just could be inspired by some new proposals that may make you visit the Florence in a different way. And in this sense, we promote the craft sector. We put evidence on the capabilities, on the tradition, on the technical skills of each atelier. And we provide also information, because sometimes you go to an atelier, you find it closed maybe, or you don't find it, or you don't know how it has been developed, or which is its history. So the storytelling is really important to explain the history of the tradition craft sector, or of the people dealing with the craft sector. Each atelier can provide also information about experiences that you can do inside the atelier. You can book them, and you can make your experience in Florence, your visit in Florence, more excited and more different. So these were, first of all, the two main actions. So the call for craft in order to improve the digital sector, dealing with the craft sector, and the action 2, the working in craft, in order to link and contaminate the tourism sector, so important for our city, with the craft sector. The first action, call for craft, has been already tested in the pilot, and the second action, the working in craft, we are developing now and will be monitored during the phase 2. So starting from August 2022, we will have the opportunity to monitor and test the action 2. So I think, thank you very much. I try to be short.
So, János Kelle, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the opportunity. From the point of view of the whole BVK, this project was completely about learning. And it was very fortunate that it was Florence who started, because they are the ones who inspire all of us about how you have to further innovate your craftsmanship, and how you can use it for improving the image of a city, your tourism sector, or to position yourself on the international turf. We are on a different level. Budapest has different size and different possibilities, but the principle itself and the approach that Florence is working with is inspiring for all of us, and also for Hungary. The first important point that I would like to emphasize is that it is in our interest, our principal interest, to preserve these crafts and to hand them over, pass them over to the 21st century, to introduce them to the young generations, maybe for those who, after working in multinational companies, would like to do something else and feel what is it like doing something with your hands. During the pandemic was mentioned several times during the speeches, how it changed our lives and how it changed our approach to our position in the world, what it means to work, what it means to perform work and to create something. And a lot of people have realized that it would be a bit more important to get closer to our roots, and we started to appreciate that time which we devote to creating things, to creating objects. So either it's professionals or a layman who create something. So I think that of course there's these projects, but also there are moral obligations around that, which is much more than the project. After the introduction, I would like to talk about the project itself. We wanted to choose from the already existing strategies in Budapest, and we wanted to incorporate this project in one of them. And we chose the long-term development concept of Budapest. It lasts until 2030. And it comprises several goals on how to make Budapest more successful, more sustainable, and more livable. First of all, we wanted to redefine Budapest as a home. It should be good to live here. You shouldn't have to move to raise children, to get some green spaces. So I think that it is very important for the leadership of the city. Budapest also should be a community space, and it should provide home to all of the ethnicities and all of the layers of society. The third point is Budapest should be a good place to work, not only for those who work in the offices in a corporate world, but also for SMEs, also for artists, also for craftsmen, for artisans. They should have an opportunity to make a living out of it and find their places in this city. And the fourth point is Budapest should not only be handled as the city itself, but also as a center of a region and as a center of a whole country. It should be an example in front of all of the regions of the country. Budapest has a central position with its positive and negative sides, but it should be important that, yes, it is a capital and it should go in front of others with good examples. Of course, we have also performed a SWOT analysis, introducing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What is important here? What are the strengths? I think, or as we see, there's a very close link between the creative industry and the industrial digitalization. Those people who are more creative than others, who are capable of expressing their creativity, can use their imagination, who have a talent for creating something, these people will be more capable of using the digitalized world and to understand it. And this is where tradition meets modernity. And I think that it could be a nice message to take home. Modernity and tradition, they are not two extremes. They are not contradicting each other. So when you think about passing on traditions and saving them for the future, and this is not in contradiction with, not in conflict with modernity, because in the future tradition will be more appreciated. What is the project about? Carlotta talked about the Irish example. It was very inspiring also to us, how to improve online presence of these SMEs, how to help them understand this word, because they do have to find their place here in the digital world so that they can be successful. And also there's a Catalonian example. During the COVID, they had a very interesting so before the pandemic, 70% of their income came from the tourism, from foreign tourists, and the pandemic hit them very hard. So they started a campaign. It has become very successful, and we would like to use the good practices from this campaign also in Budapest. We can help in communication. We can create a platform for artists, artisans, entrepreneurs. We can help them introduce themselves, give them opportunities at Christmas markets, for example, in December, or in the fair center. We can have a pop-up exhibition for them so that they can become visible, more visible. We also need a complex mentoring opportunity. We need to help them in this way. And also I would like to mention a very complex problem here towards the end. We should make them more sensitive. There should be a sensitization so that they can communicate more effectively online. And it is a big problem. Here you can see the steps how we are planning to solve this problem. So the main problem is that while in the creative industry, design has been a very effective, profit-oriented sector, at the same time it is, and also Hilda mentioned that craftsmen remained in this gray or black category. With improving their skills, their business skills, management skills, we can help them so that they can build a business on their talent. And with this, they can serve the community. And I think as a foundation, who, you know, cannot really understand the art sphere, but what we know about it is business development, and here we can really help them. And I think that with this approach, we could also be successful in the long term, and Budapest could appreciate their own sources. So thank you very much, and if there's questions, then I'm happy to answer.
Good morning, everybody. I'm delighted to be here this morning in beautiful Budapest. My name is Maria Couchman. I'm the Senior Craft and Education Advisor with the Design and Crafts Council in Ireland. We're also the communications partner on the Craft Codes project. I'm joined this morning by Lynn Whelan. Lynn is a Senior Design Strategist at the Design Plus Gateway at the Southeast Technological University, which was previously called Carlow Institute of Technology. Lynn delivers the Innovate program, which focuses on using design strategy to help businesses innovate. And I also have Garvin de Boer here. Garvin is a master craftsman who originally was trained as a furniture designer, and he's incorporated sort of leather into his furniture, but also developed different housing structures and pilot schemes. So Garvin recently participated on the Innovate program, which was run by Lynn, but with our network of local enterprise offices. And it's really, I suppose, the Innovate program, it really allows businesses to innovate in a structured way, and that incorporates design strategy. So Lynn and Garvin are going to explain the approach they took and how she worked with Garvin to visually map, to ideate and to evaluate decisions and how to progress these craft innovations and making right decisions for craft innovations. So I'll just hand over to Lynn and Garvin.
Thank you, Maria. Hello, delighted to be here in the lovely city of Budapest. We've enjoyed the quick tour we've had so far, and looking forward to the rest of today and tomorrow. So, yes, as Maria said, I was acting as the knowledge provider. I deliver strategic design for innovation programs across the country in Ireland. It's still an emergent area and an emergent field in Ireland to be using strategic design techniques applied in a business context. And the innovation programs currently are delivered to mixed sectors, so from all sectors. And if we just recap, I suppose, on our action plan aims, we originally were looking at developing a strategic design program for innovation, specifically with a focus on craft sector needs. And we were looking at addressing the challenge of balancing the creative freedom of the makers and the capacity and skills to develop the viable business model. So the strategic design program that we operate, I suppose the first thing to say is strategic design as an approach is about using design methodologies to develop strategies for the business. And that approach works particularly well for craft people because it's a very visual process. It puts people at the centre of the process and people's motivations and their drivers, and it's about visualization. So we're mapping a lot of complex data around the business ecosystem, and so it becomes a very visual process. It's not large reports or strategic reports in text, it's a very visual process. This visualization helps to create a shared context among the people in the ecosystem and among funding providers, etc., as a means to communicate. It also gives the participant the opportunity of critical thinking and introducing critical thinking into the business, because they get the chance to step outside of the everyday rushing and firefighting and making and doing. And it's about taking them out of that and being able to critically analyse the business and map it in a very visual way and build on the opportunities and then action them into very specific road mapping applications. And so there was an existing programme which was funded by a local enterprise office in Ireland. It was based in Kildare, and I was delivering that programme through the strategic design approach. And Garvin, who will speak to you in a moment, was a participant. So he was our pilot as a master craftsman to participate in the programme and help us to tease out more specific needs when we develop into a full action plan response. So Garvin went through a series of design workshops with myself and a mixed sector of companies. He was facilitated through a 4-stage process that we apply in the methodology, and he engaged in the visual mapping, the ideating and the evaluating techniques that we use to provide clarity of his objectives and strategic aims. Now, this culminated in a strategic roadmap for Garvin. Garvin is long established and has developed from a very strong craft and design background through leatherwork and woodwork, a very innovative architectural design, which he has explored through his craft and design approach. And he's built and he's tested and he's tried various things. And so when we looked at that together, the piece that we can now identify to support him with is to help commercializing that idea and that innovative architectural design. And so to do that, we're bringing it back to a version of a minimum viable product that we can build, and we can map the methodology of the build technique. We can map specifically the design, the final design of the concept and the costings, so that Garvin can then proceed to leverage that into scaling a commercial entity and collaboration with various partners. So that's the piece that we will continue to support Garvin with on his journey. So, as I said, we did lots of visual mapping for Garvin's journey, and this is just an example of the Aviator House. Garvin will tell us a little bit about it in a moment. And as you can see, aesthetically, it's a beautiful design, but it's embedded in his craft knowledge and expertise to create the arches that are the focal point of the design and integral to the design. He's developed it right up into a full house model, as you can see. And this, just to bring it back to the starting point, was Garvin's leather workshop, where the pod first began. And I think we have a short video, there's some of the leather goods, that we could just play, and then Garvin will just run through a few more details around his work and his journey on the aviator house and his leather work. So if we could play the video link, please, for one moment. Thank you, and I'll put Garvin on there now.
I guess I've always been around making or craftsmanship at some level, so the idea of designing and making is very natural to me. My inspirations are quite broad. A lot of my ideas are derived from biomimicry and a study of structures and structures in nature. I self-build my workshops and any of the studios here, so they kind of follow a similar design philosophy. I'm trying to use shape. So when it comes to making a bag, I don't see the need to necessarily cut it into small components and stitch it back together. I prefer to work with large portions of shape, and I do a lot of wrapping and folding or rolling. The style is very simple and honest, but because it's an amazing material, it creates a very elegant, very kind of unassuming design. It's influenced my approach to shape and structure and construction style. So our very high craft skills are being met with increasingly high design skills, which is great for the craft industry in Ireland.
Great, we'll just reverse on that. Thanks very much. So I'm Garvin de Broer, and like many craftspeople, we've plenty of ideas, but trying to put structure on them is possibly where we fall down. And in taking part on the course with Lynn, I probably really benefited from the more visual mapping as opposed to documents and write-ups and various propositions and pitches. So I found the kind of whiteboard approach and lots of visuals really great for organising what at the time one portion of my workshop is based on woodworking. Another portion is very much the leather atelier. So wearing my woodworking and development hat is currently where I was working with Lynn and really finding the benefits of the innovation course, because in actual fact the methodology I used to create this shape, and essentially it's a full prefabricated building, but it's carried out really from a traditional woodworker's background. So I'm using core cabinet making skills, and from there introducing technology. And it's it's a slow development. Like many craftspeople, these can be kind of passion projects or kind of a lifetime of work that only later comes to fruition into a full house design. But where it began is many years ago. This is my first workshop that I built, and the ideation phase and slow evolution of material technology developed from there, and has become a workshop, or has become a potential business venture in itself with the help of the new innovation program. Where it links then to the other portion of my studio, where my day-to-day work is I run a leather atelier and I'm hand-making leather bags. It's I'm really looking forward to applying the same techniques that I would have garnered with the mapping and the structure gained from all those visual aids to bring to that, and to try and drive on with some structure from that. So that's where we are in terms of. I think there's a great connection from that to a day-to-day crafts person. And I've previously benefited from the optimised programme that we spoke about from the Crafts Council, and really think that this next innovative step in the action plan will be great things for my leather atelier as well.
Thanks, Garvin. Thank you very much for that. Sorry, excuse me. So I think as Garvin was saying, and as Lynn was saying as well, one of the key points about, I guess, the programme, what we've learned is that we're very lucky in Ireland to have local enterprise offices. So these are a national network of offices that provide support for businesses that are starting up and that are scaling. And the Innovate programme was run through these local enterprise offices. So I suppose from us on this Crafts Code journey, where we've gotten to is that we've run a pilot. We've learned a huge amount from all of our European partners. So from us as the Design and Crafts Council, really our next steps is to be just developing slightly the case study that we've got with De Boers. So you've seen some of the illustration of it there in terms of what the approach was like, how the Innovate programme mapped out different ideas, how it helped to structure thinking, particularly in a creative world. And I think that structural part is something that we're seeing through all of the craft businesses that have come through, that I suppose structure around being able to innovate, but also to be able to make decisions on which idea to pursue, which idea is going to be commercially viable, and which idea suits a business in terms of where they want to, how they want to develop strategically. So the next aim for us is, from the Design and Craft Council side, is that we hope to develop a craft-specific toolkit, and that's going to take the learnings that Lynn has had from her rollout of the Innovate programme, but also particularly the learnings that she's taken from working with craftspeople like De Boers. Those insights will then be collated and developed into a craft-specific toolkit. So a toolkit, really, it's not a series of templates. It's very much a series of thought-provoking documentation that allows people to bring in that creativity, but does it in that structured way. And then from there, we're hoping to scope out the, I suppose, proposal for a craft-specific Innovate programme that we will then bring to our local enterprise offices and discuss the, I suppose, opportunity with them to roll out that programme through the enterprise offices, which we're hopeful we would love to be successful within that. The beauty of us doing that as well is that through the local enterprise offices, businesses such as Garvin's can also access other supports like a trading online voucher, which helps businesses to develop their website, to develop their e-commerce strategies and things like that. So it's really very much a continuum of trying to get businesses to scale up, but to do it in a very much supportive way. And I suppose just the last thing for me to say is just, you know, we're all very, very proud of the engagement that's taken place with the partners and through the Crafts Codes programme. And I just want to echo Ms. Salahonen's thought from this morning to say there's never been a more important time for us to partner with our European neighbours. So we hope to continue to work together, and we hope to continue the sharing and learning that we have. So thank you very much.
Right, thank you. What a pressure to continue after that presentation, but I'll do my best. We are now maybe going to a bit different direction into the world of Interreg Europe and policy learning and policy instruments and all sorts of things from that scale. A word about me. My name is Elisa Kraatari. Kraatari, actually an old Finnish word for a tailor. I have a background with MA in textile design, but afterwards I took a bit of a change of career to culture policy and political sciences. And in my research, I took a bit of a look into craft-related policies in Finland in a historical setting. But now we are looking into what's going on about a Crafts Code action plan in Ostrobothnia. Very general overview, first of all. this action plan includes 2 actions with the type of policy change intended, improved management of the policy instrument, and the policy instruments that we are looking at here in this action plan are the regional strategy of Ostrobothnia. This includes 2 parts, the regional plan until 2050, and then a rather short-term here and now type of paper, the regional program. We also covered here the innovation and growth strategy, also known as the smart specialization strategy, that are also created throughout Europe. Okay, a short look into the policy context. What are we talking about in this action plan for Ostrobothnia region? We are in West Finland, at the coast of Gulf of Bothnia. In this area, there is what kind of other attributes where we're going on is high-level industrialization in technology and engineering products, with growing exporting, also with solutions in energy and electronics products. In other terms, there are key sectors for this region in timber, paper, food production, and different services. A key question that have been repeated throughout the CRAFTS Code project in this region is whether this kind of if there could be this kind of spillover effect that would draw from the high-level industrialization in the region, and how that could better feed into other sectors, including also the craft SMEs. About the policy needs, we first heard about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and we are also going to take a short look into that in this presentation. What has already been mentioned earlier here too is that craft sector is typically seen as a marginal economic activity. Public investments on the craft sector are very limited in this, in many regions in Finland, but including also Ostrobothnia. But what is also a problem are the thin structures. There are not many structures for craft sector as such. So also the possibilities, there are not enough broad shoulders to apply for funding for very large projects. Also recognized here, craft entrepreneurship counts among the cultural and creative industries, and that, on the other hand, has been widely recognized as an important factor for local economies. So this also means that craft is more often recognized, and it's seen as close to other sectors. I have you now here as an example the hospitality services, but overall a key thing to notice here and to focus on now and in the recent years, before now and in the future, is of course digitization and how that could help. We already heard about this part, so I'm not going to look very much into detail in this. But as I think we have heard, there are kind of similarities in what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses on the other hand. I added here a couple of bubbles that I would suggest that we should focus on more. Are the different significances that crafts can have, not only in monetary terms or economic terms, but also on the cultural level and in the social level. What is the meaning of this, especially the heritage crafts for local communities? Also an important thing, talking about the investment rates into crafts sector, is to understand that from the regional authorities, development agents, it would also mark as an investment into the cultural viability in different locations. And lastly, already mentioned here a couple of times, the need to focus on sustainability. And I also mention here the SDGs, something that we all should be taking attention to. So, I kind of added this as a side comment to all those strengths, opportunities, weaknesses, and threats that we've already heard about. But now let's look into the actions quite briefly. Here, as I said, we have two actions. The first one, including the craft sector as part of the CCIs and making their policy needs, especially in digitization, more recognized in the regional strategy. This is the goal of this action. And in the earlier version of this regional strategy, the digitization, of course, already was acknowledged, but now the intention with this action is to underline it, that it's not there for just some key industries, but also for craft SMEs and the CCIs in general. The Crafts Code project here has worked tremendously by offering several practical examples about digital tools and services. I mentioned here the three of those that already been mentioned, the optimized design, detool, and makex. What we underline with Action 1 is that this regional strategy is a key steering policy instrument, a policy document, and we see that through this Action 1, we want it to underline more the possibilities, and it should be taking its stand, spreading the message, recognizing and promoting the needs and opportunities also of the craft sector as part of the CCIs. And the goal was, there's the cover of the new strategy paper. You can fluently read it there in Finnish. But let's move forward to Action 2, whereas the Action 1 was more very much focused on policy instrument development. In Action 2, we have a bit more action going on. What we talk about is a virtual platform strengthening craft SMEs' digital capacities and improving the smart specialization learning process in the region. Here the focus is on the S3 strategy, and this is envisioned as a two-way initiative, so that on the one hand it works as a practical platform for spreading information about digital solutions and also giving the possibility for craft entrepreneurs to learn about and how to adopt them. But on the other hand, how this platform could be used as a tool for development in the region, and especially is focusing now on this smart specialization. This is affecting an ongoing process that has already been adopted in the region, but now taking into it an angle from the crafts SMEs and in general from the CCIs. A quick overlook into what Action 2 is in practice. In general terms, it's quite strongly based on this example of makex, that was seen as a platform that collects knowledge about different digital solutions and how craft SMEs could make use of them. So the idea with this new platform that is created through this action is to collect together information about those possibilities that exist there in the Ostrobothnia region and how that could be spread around and introduced, allow the possibilities to learn about them for the craft entrepreneurs. But at the same time, this platform is also used to collect information about the development needs that craft entrepreneurs may have. There will be included a questionnaire that people who are using this platform would fill in so that how they are kind of doing is better heard at the developmental level. I think next I have a quick image of how that is supposed to work. So this is a picture of the ongoing process that is included in the smart specialization process. So this is a process of learning that is applied in general to the key sectors, I might now say, in Ostrobothnia. But with this tool, the intention is to have an impact on this and make this sector better heard as part of this development process. There it is still put in a few words what this is about. So making a direct improvement to the managing of the smart specialization strategy process, an ongoing process that is renewed every 4 or 5 years. Lastly, I take into your attention what Interreg projects often are really about policy learning, and I'm focusing on this. So there are different kinds and different levels of learning that is going on with this action too, or what we are looking for. There is, of course, learning from the CRAFTS code regions with their examples, what has already been done elsewhere, spreading that those lessons learned in a practical and concise way. And lastly, of course, the aspect of policy learning and bringing that experience, experimenting into the regional development processes. But I think this is so far what I wanted to tell you.
Hello, my name is Nina Dimitrova, and today I'm going to present you the action plan of Bulgaria named Inclusion of Thematic Co for Family Businesses, Creative Industries and Craft Enterprises in the program Competitiveness and Innovation Enterprises 2021 to 2027. The Bulgarian Crafts Code partners are Aram Center of Stara Planina and Ministry of Innovation and Growth, European Funds for Competitiveness, Directorate General. Let's see first the policy context. The policy target instrument in the application form is Operational Program Innovation and Competitiveness, OPIC 2014 to 2020. In view of the situation in the global context with the pandemic and in order to overcome the negative effect of the state of emergency in the country and the economic consequences of the crisis, the managing authority of OPIC focused all its efforts, resources and capacity on the launch of simplified procedures intended to provide financial support to small and medium-sized enterprises affected by the restrictions imposed in connection with the COVID-19 pandemic. During the implementation of the project, both Bulgarian partners realized that the program Competitiveness and Innovation in Enterprises 2021 to 2027, which is the new name of the program for the new programming period, is most suitable for a policy instrument. The program is financed by the European Structural and Investment Fund with co-financing from the national budget. The program is Investment for Growth and Jobs. It's aimed at achieving smart and sustainable growth of the Bulgarian economy, as well as the implementation of industrial and digital transformation. Addressing the needs identified in areas such as competitiveness and entrepreneurship through the intervention envisaged under Priority 1, Specific Objective 3. The program aims to contribute to the achievement of the following policy objectives set at European level. A more competitive and smarter Europe by promoting innovative and smart economic transformation and information and communications technology connectivity. A greener, low-carbon Europe transitioning to a net zero carbon economy, and sustainable Europe by promoting the transition to clean and fair energy, green and blue investments, a circular economy, climate change, migrations and adaptation, risk prevention and management, and sustainable urban mobility. There are three priorities of the program: innovation and growth, circular economy, and technical assistance. The action plan proposes a support to craft enterprises with investments in production. With this in mind, for the first time, the program will include a special procedure thematically aimed at enterprises with a smaller scope of activity, such as family enterprises, creative industries, and craft enterprises. For the new programming period 2021 to 2027, crafts were included as a priority sector in the program. The measure aimed specifically at craftsmen is support for crafts, entrepreneurship in rural areas, and creative industries, including at regional level. It's included in the document after the need for specific activities in support of crafts has been established. This specific call is planned to be announced in the first half of 2023. Research and analysis carried out within the project, meetings and interviews with stakeholders show the following to craft enterprises: a lack of up-to-date market analysis and studies, and an action plan to expand the markets, handicrafts work difficulties, reduced consumption and limited opportunities for traditional sale of handicrafts as a result of the measures imposed due to the pandemic. Lack of information on marketing and technological innovation opportunities applicable to artisan enterprises in the region. Aging of experienced and highly qualified craftsmen. A rapidly changing global environment and the need for flexibility and rapid adaptation to respond to competitive pressures and maintain market position. Strong competition for imitating products. Mass production at lower prices imposed by aggressive advertising and marketing strategies. Based on these, 5 areas of support for craft enterprises have been formed: research and development and innovation, digitalization, growth and competitiveness, energy efficiency, and transition towards circular economy. Some further details on the policy context and how the action plan contributes to it. RAM Central Stara Planina and Directorate General European Funds for Competitiveness at the Ministry of Innovation and Growth propose to include in this action plan a measure to support SMEs in the field of craftsmanship in order to increase their competitiveness. The action plan was developed within the framework of the project funded by the program. The project was conceived in order to achieve its objectives by conducting thematic meetings and seminars on the following topics: how to improve innovation applied in the business model and process, how to access new markets and targets, how to innovate the craft sector by implementing innovative approaches and tools, and how to support the craft sector through access to finance. The main objective of the action plan and its implementation is to improve the design of the policy instruments thematic call to include a measure, new projects, to improve the competitiveness specifically of SMEs in the field of craftsmanship. Inclusion of craft enterprises as a specific sector in the program and launch a specific measure to support family businesses, creative industries and craft enterprises. The proposed action shall provide access to co-financing, small grants for productive investments in modern equipment, machinery, and facilities for strengthening craft enterprises' competitiveness. It should be tailored to the needs of the family enterprises, creative industries, including craft enterprises, and these specifics, along with the regional development potential, should be taken into account in the selection criteria. Body responsible for the policy instrument is Directorate General for European Funds and Competitiveness of the Ministry of Innovation and Growth, Managing Authority of OPIC and Program Competitiveness and Innovation in Enterprises 2021 to 2027. RAM Central Startup Planina and Ministry of Innovation and Growth will continue to participate in the preparation of the measure and will be directly involved in the process of improving the policy instrument by participating in the consultation process under the program. The new program, it has been prepared and is in the final phase before approval by the Commission. Within the framework of the project, the following organizations have been identified as stakeholders that are relevant and can influence the operational program at national level. The stakeholder group in phase 1 of the project actively participated in the policy research process through participation in meetings and partially in seminars. The main role of the stakeholders was to advise the process of drawing up an action plan to improve the operational program as a tool for implementing policies to promote craft enterprises. During the implementation of the first phase of the project, the Bulgarian partners took part in 4 interregional thematic work groups and held 9 meetings with the group of local stakeholders. Particularly useful in view of the objectives of the Bulgarian partners for optimal structuring of the future thematic call, including measures to support and improve the competitiveness of the craft sector, were the good practices and the overall policy to support the business in the craft sector of Ireland, Hungary, Italy, and Spain. The general experience of Ireland and the additional information provided by the Irish experts and the online sources provided by our Italian colleagues were useful and provoked further researches in the field of support for craft enterprises. Here is the whole structure of our action plan: the inspiration, the aim, the policy instrument, the action, and finally the budget. Funding for beneficiaries, craft enterprises, family enterprises, and creative industries will be up to 50 million euros. Source of funding is the program Competitiveness and Innovation Enterprises 2021 to 2027 and European Regional Development Fund. And finally, activities and timing. If the program is approved and the proposed measure is accepted, the following activities should take place: elaboration of methodology and criteria for selection of operations for the second and third quarter of 2022. For the third quarter of 2022 is planned consultation with the interested parties, public discussion, approval of methodology and criteria for selection of operations from the monitoring committee of the program, and elaboration of application guidelines. For the first quarter of 2023 is the launching of the grant award procedure, and for the fourth quarter of 2024 is planned monitoring of results from the call. If you have questions, please ask them in chat, in the streaming to Desi Michalkova, because she was not be able to be here today, and she's the main expert of the program. So you can ask her in the chat. Thank you for the attention.
Hi, good morning to everyone. I'm going to present the action plan of Spain from the EOI Foundation. Our action plan has been developed by a company expert doing this, and they have elaborated a SWOT analysis. For doing that, they have done an extensive review of literature, and also we did an online survey to validate the answers of our SWOT, of our and these actors are related with CRAFTS. The action plan has two main actions. The first one is a program, I will explain later, and also the second action is the CRAFTS Observatory. I'm not going to explain this too much because Hilde already said, but some of the strengths that we have seen in the Spanish SMEs are the high degree of customization of their products. Also, they have started using digital channels to promote their crafts. Also, the diverse of quality products, the incorporation of design and new trends. We have seen that Spanish crafts have been very well valued at a national and international level. And, well, their singularity, specialization, and differentiation is also very valued. This is maybe the most important because the weaknesses that we are facing are our actions of our action plan are trying to face these weaknesses, which are the first of all, the lack of business skills to develop business models, strategies, and management. Also, the insufficient capacity to position Spanish products into foreign markets. Also, the lack of a common body to unify efforts, because in Spain, the crafts responsibility is divided in 19 different regions, so at the end, we don't have like the power to go together, no? Also, some of the weaknesses are the absence of product qualification or quality standards, and again, the lack of skills to take advantage of digitalization. Regarding the opportunities, we have, of course, the collaboration with other sectors like tourism, culture, or general industry. Also, the new trends, we have seen that our customers start looking for different kind of products, more sustainable, more local, more innovative. Another opportunity is the possibility to integrate all the Spanish products under the same umbrella, like the Spain brand. And also the possibility to introduce other kind of experience in the workshops. And finally, some of the threats that we have seen during this analysis, and probably are they will be the same in some of the European countries, are the lack of generational changeover, the disappearance of small businesses in our cities, and also the economic impact that the pandemic and the war of Ukraine maybe cause. So after this analysis, we can propose two actions. The first action is our craft business creation, consolidation, and competitive positioning program. It's a program that has been inspired by the Irish good practice, which is building craft and design enterprise. It focused on improving the competitiveness of SMEs. We are going to try to improve their knowledge about business management, digitalization, internationalization, marketing, finance. And we are going to do that through two different programs. A program for entrepreneurs and people with less than 5 years of creation, and another program for consolidation, for more consolidated businesses, for all people, because we have seen that they have been maybe they are not so familiarized with the new technologies, and they don't know how to grow. So at the end, we are going to offer 13 training programs all over Spain. They will be online. We want to have 30 students in each of the programs, we'll see. The programs will be 60 hours of teaching plus 5 hours of mentoring per student. It's a little bit different than the IRIS program, but because we incorporate our own needs and our own experience, but basically is that. And we will, well, the program will be financed by the European Social Fund plus some EOI Foundation budget. And the second action is going to be the CRAFTS Observatory. As we have seen in the weaknesses, we are 19 regions, and every region has their own policy, strategy, and different kind of stuff. So we are gonna try to come together and elaborate a plan to improve competitiveness of craft Spanish enterprises. We were inspired by the good practices of Creaction in Finland and Make X from Italy. They both, they are projects where it's very important, the learning environment, the space to share and to collaborate. So that's the main objective of this action is increase and share knowledge, experiences, collaboration strategies, to improve the competitiveness of the Spanish enterprises. The main actors of this action are going to be EOI Foundation. We are going to be the secretariat. We are going to be the ones who organize the meetings, collect the information, spread the word through the digital networks. And also some of the actors will be the public administrations, also some reference entities and organization and experts in the topics that the actors want or the ones that are interested. The format is going to be, there is going to be a plenary session every year, ideally in person, then some online working sessions about the topics that people are interested or about what they want, and also some communication actions. And some of the functions, most of them have stayed then, but basically is share and increase quality knowledge about the sector, collect artisan and citizen information through our social networks, support access of craft companies to access to grants or aids, also share good practices and successful projects, as we have done during the Crafts Code projects, because actually this good practice emerged during these stakeholder meetings of Crafts Code. Identify new ways to promote the sector, promote collaboration and participation, not only between artisans, but also with another industries. So yeah, and this action is going to be financed by the Spanish government's general budget. So yeah, I was very quickly, but I thank you very much, and if you have any questions.